everyone. My name is Sami Bamani, and this is my presentation on climate change and how it relates to the travel and tourism industry. So, for those who don't know, the travel and tourism industry is a multi-trillion-dollar industry, not just in the US, but globally as well. According to records, the United States did about $1.9 trillion worth of revenue within the travel and tourism industry. Now, climate change has more to do with just the weather. For those who don't know, climate change, of course, does have to do with the increase in temperature that we've all been probably experiencing all around the world. But climate change also has a lot to do with extreme weather circumstances such as hurricanes and wildfires, as well as earthquakes. So this presentation is going to walk us through how climate change and the travel industry have intertwined and how climate change has, in most cases, negatively impacted the industry. And it will also show how marketing can hopefully mitigate the situation and get people to start traveling much more. Now, the issues at hand in regards to climate change affecting the travel and tourism industry. So climate change has significantly impacted the travel and tourism industry. And again, like I said, in most cases, in a negative way. Climate change is affecting the way in which people travel. Climate change is causing economic disturbance. Climate change is causing people to travel much less, and climate change is destroying natural destinations. So let's dig a little bit deeper into these topics. So for one, the way in which people travel is changing due to the fact that a lot of times now it is unbearably hot in certain destinations. For an easy example, if someone were to be traveling to the United Arab Emirates, as most people know, the city of Dubai, before it was much easier to travel, and although Dubai is a desert, the heat was still bearable. However, now, in the prime summer times, it is nearly impossible to go there and not get sick. So that being said, people are now traveling at a different time, say maybe in the winter time in Dubai, in order to avoid getting sick. Now, when we talk about economic disturbance, like I mentioned before, the travel industry is a multi-trillion-dollar industry. So any sorts of items that affect it will cause a large amount of economic disturbance. Now, when it comes to people traveling much less, that has a prime example as to what is going on in many of the colder regions. So, for example, oftentimes people want to enjoy the winter times and enjoy winter sports such as skiing. Well, due to the rise in temperature, a lot of places are getting a much shorter winter now, causing these winter tourist attractions to be open for much less time. And then automatically, if people can't match that timing, they are not able to go and visit. Now, when it comes to climate change destroying natural destinations, as seen by certain websites such as cam.ac, we can see how coastal regions are starting to get destroyed due to climate change, and the infrastructure around those areas is also starting to get destroyed due to issues such as rising sea levels. Now, who is affected by climate change? Now, particularly, of course, we're going to talk about those who are affected within the travel and tourism industry. In the grand scheme of things, everyone around the globe is affected or will be affected at some point. However, businesses that deal within the travel and tourism industry are very much so affected. These businesses may include airline companies, hotels, tour companies, and much more. Now, people also living in certain regions where their business depends on travel and tourism, they are also facing lots of hardship due to less people traveling to those countries or to those regions, thus giving those small businesses less revenue. Now, why is addressing climate change within the industry so important? These climate change events can cause the entertainment industry, more so the travel and tourism industry, to take big hits. These hits can be economical, physical, and even social. So what I mean by that is climate change will, of course, as we see, affect revenue of a lot of places. It will also damage a lot of property or damage a lot of regions. For example, those regions that are along the Caribbean or in more island type destinations, they will get affected, possibly even get wiped out. Now, when I say social, I mean more so the cultural parts and social parts of those folks living amongst those regions. Now, travel and tourism is such a big industry, producing trillions of dollars a year, meaning we must keep the industry alive. And travel and tourism quite possibly runs the economy in many countries, like I said again. And lastly, climate change in general is an issue that should be focused on to resolve. Now, of course, when we're speaking about it in terms of entertainment industry, yes, of course, we want to try to mitigate climate change. However, just as people of the world and globally, I think it's very important for people to focus on mitigating climate change. And, it's going to be hard to stop, but it won't be impossible to slow down the effects of climate change. Now, how does marketing play a part in all of this? Marketing is very important in the travel and tourism industry, especially as of now. During COVID time, of course, a lot of people were not able to travel, and the travel industry took probably one of the biggest hits out of any other industry in the entire world. Now, once COVID has more so passed over, people have started traveling again, of course, but is it at the same rate as it once was? Not quite. However, travel has gone up in expense, and prices for flights, prices for hotels, just like everything else in the world, has gone up. Now, many people are not interested in traveling due to these climate change issues. So, marketers will need to convince people to travel again. Now, this all, of course, ties into the 4 C's of the marketing industry. However, in this scenario where the content would probably be the place of travel, say for example, Florida, they need to now appeal to the customers on why they should still go ahead and travel, or they need to explain to travelers how they can take precautions or travel at certain points in order to avoid these climate change issues such as hurricanes or earthquakes, etc., etc. Now, what are the different types of issues climate change is causing? Wildfires are a big one. Wildfires have predominantly been seen in California. They're, of course, caused once it's too hot and the air is too dry. This can cause wildfires to happen in the forest, which is what was seen in California. And this was, of course, seen all over the news. This was also recently seen in some parts of southern Canada. Now, we also have wipeouts of coastal regions. Certain tragic experiences such as hurricanes and earthquakes are wiping out these coastal regions. But what else is also wiping out coastal regions is the rise of the sea level. There are certain smaller islands that may eventually be wiped out due to the sea level just taking over. Now, we also have erosion of land. Again, this has a lot to do with the rising sea level. And then we have extreme weather conditions such as hurricanes and earthquakes, as spoken about before, and extreme heat in warm regions. Now, in most parts of America, we may not see too much high heat, but there are still certain regions such as that in Nevada, Arizona, where it's just way too hot during the summertime and way too dry, and this drags people away from traveling to those areas. So what steps marketers can take to help the industry? Companies can post very beautiful imagery of the destinations in order to attract travelers. Of course, this is just when it comes to online marketing. This is just touching the base of the issue. Companies can also appeal to travelers by offering discounts in the slow season. So, of course, like I mentioned before, travel is much more expensive now than it was before. So offering discounts may be a good way to incentivize people to travel to these certain regions. Companies may give free perks to travelers on certain dates. So something that is seen a lot now is that hotels or even airlines give certain upgrades or certain little perks that incentivize people to continue traveling with them or staying with them. Marketers can also run ads and send out blast emails to frequent travelers or those travelers of certain regions during the slow months. And marketing has the power to mitigate the loss in revenue of the travel and tourism industry due to climate change. Now, here are some of the solutions. As we know, climate change is a constant issue, but that doesn't mean it can't be slowed down. In order to solve the issue, people globally must act together on helping against climate change, even though we all know that is very much so hard to do. So our best bet would be to help slow down the climate change effects. Now, when it comes to travelers who are already still traveling, they're going to need to adapt to newer traveling methods over the next few years or probably few decades. Travel companies should also work with the government and locals to finding solutions for healthier travel and transportation around the globe. So, for example, if there are airline companies, they can find ways to make their jets a little bit more efficient. As we know, they burn a lot of fuel, they put a lot of chemical into the air, and they also definitely have a lot to do with global warming. So airlines can start to develop better jets that are a little bit more efficient, helping the cause. Here's some discussion topics that are good to think about and just some questions to really focus upon and see if us as individuals can help the issue. Can the travel industry directly help to stop climate change or reduce it? Will tourism eventually be wiped out from natural destinations? Will people need to modify the way they travel? And how can the entertainment industry use its influence to help the climate change issue? Now, in conclusion, the travel and tourism industry is heavily affected by climate change, like we mentioned before, in mostly negative ways. Steps need to be taken, people need to adapt, and companies need to take precautions. The negative effects of climate change are heavy, but can hopefully be mitigated or at least slowed down. Through the power of marketing, people can be convinced to continue traveling and do so safely and cautiously in efforts to protect the environment. Again, I think this is a very big topic that more people need to focus on. The world has a lot of great natural destinations that I'm sure many people want to go and discover and go and enjoy. And in order to do so, we must help to mitigate climate change as much as possible in order for these destinations to still stay alive.